Hey there, YouTube. So today we're going to deviate a little bit away from what we normally do here. We normally do technology reviews, but today we're going to go over Boss Monster. This is a game that I had discovered through one of my friends at work, and he ended up buying it for me for Christmas. He found a pretty good deal for it on Amazon. So yeah, I guess let's get right in. The box is freaking sweet, very reminiscent of an old Nintendo game. As a matter of fact, when it was sitting on my desk, at least 10 people at work walked by and was like, dude, what the heck is that? And when I tell them what it was, it's a card game, they're like, dude, I thought it was an old Nintendo game. That's awesome. So, I mean, they even put little scratches on there to make it look like an antique Nintendo game. So, when you open it up, it looks just like this, except everything's in a plastic case, I guess. Your quick start guide, which honestly is really a majority of what you need to play the game. The advanced rules are for when you're kind of nitpicking and getting more specific. I do recommend you read through the rule book one time, but after that, the quick start rules or the quick start guide will get you through a majority of anything that you need a nudge on. Now, honestly, this game is so simple in play that really anybody can play it. It takes about 20 minutes for only two people. You can play it with 2, 3, or 4 players. The setup's very easy. You take your room deck, which is the main part of the game, how you design your dungeon. You shuffle it, set it to the side, and then in your other stack of cards over here, you've got all the other kinds of cards. You have your spell cards, which you also shuffle and place next to the room decks. And then you have your heroes. So you've got two kinds of heroes. You have your epic heroes and your standard heroes. Epic heroes come out at the very end of the game after all of your normal heroes have been used up. So all you have to do for setup, you'll see here that I've already separated them because I usually play with 2 people. But when you're doing your initial setup here, you're going to look and you'll see that at the bottom of each card there is a number of players. So you're going to take out anything above the number of players. So if you got 2 players, you only keep the 2s in. If you got 3 players, you keep all the 3s in. If you got 4 players, you keep all the cards in, so shuffle them all in. You separate the 3, so you separate them out, so all you got is your 2-player cards, and you set them into your piles. Like so. Make sure they're all in the camera. And then the last cards you're going to have are your boss cards. This is the boss that the heroes, which are the, I guess, artificial intelligence, the AI enemies, and your bosses, which are you. So you're going to shuffle one to your opponent, one to yourself. Shuffle 5 room cards to each player, and 2 spell cards to each player. Now the first part of the game is what they call the setup. So you put your boss cards down, you don't look at them yet, and then you look at your hand that you were shuffled. You're going to choose 2 cards and discard them before the game starts. So we're not going to really play here, so I'm just going to choose 2 cards and discard them. My opponent would do the same. Now, we're still in the setup phase, so what you're going to do, without looking at your boss cards yet, you're going to look and you're going to actually choose the first room that you want to build. And you put it face down. So each player puts one of their rooms face down. And at the same time, you're both going to flip your bosses and your room cards. Okay. Once you've built or flipped your room cards and your boss card, you're going to look at the experience on the boss card. The person with the higher experience goes first, and the person with the lowest experience will go last. So if there's 4 players, it goes in experience order, so not counterclockwise or clockwise. You have to go in the order of the experience. So that was the setup phase. The next part of the next, I guess, part of the game is the very first turn. So what you're going to do is you flip out 2 hero cards, and you have to keep them in order of oldest to newest, because sometimes they won't go and attack anybody. So in this instance, you can see that we've got 2 mages in town, one with 8 health, one with 6 health. And if you look at the board setup, I've got one spell book in my dungeon, and my opponent has 1 spellbook in their dungeon. This means that the mages don't go anywhere as of yet. But now that we've put all these guys out, the player with the higher experience, which is my opponent, will draw a card first, always from the room deck, and then I will draw a card from the room deck. Now we're in the build phase. So in the build phase, the player with the highest experience goes first. They have priority at this point, and they will build their room and lay it face down. So they play their room. Now, one thing to consider when you're building a room, and the rules on the cards dictate what the card does, but as far as play goes, we're just going to do a quick overview. So when you're building a room, you can build out to 5 rooms. You can only build a room outside of your dungeon, so you can't put a new room right here. You have to build only out this direction. So you're going to do it when you're planning your building. You got to build it ahead of time in your mind. That way you know what you're going to be doing in the future. Now when you're building rooms, you can put a basic room, which is any room that does not say advanced right before the type of room it is. So it'll say advanced monster room or advanced trap room. Any room that is basic can be built on top of any room or to the left. So I could build a basic room here, or I could build a basic room on top of this. Now if you have an advanced room, let's see if I've got one in this hand. There we go. We have the advanced trap room called Recycling Center. So the advanced trap rooms can only be built on top of another room that has the same treasure type, which is, this one is the bag of money for the thief. So if you look at the board right now, the advanced room cannot be built. So if you want to build that room, you would have to build something like the Dragon Hatchery, which has the thief type room. So they play the room face down, and I play my room face down. And then we flip. We both flip simultaneously, but any effects that would happen for this room being built, it'll say when this room is built, that would happen in the order of experience. So if she had one and I had one, then this player would have their effect happen first, then mine second. Now the important thing to know, and this is for more advanced play styles and play tactics, is when it's her turn, because she has the highest experience, to play first, you're going to have priority. So until she lays this room down, she has priority. What that means is she can play any number of build spells. She actually only has a non-build spell, but if she had build spells, she could play as many as she wants, and then she has to pass priority. So let's say a lot of people that are into complex games, priority works. It's a very important part of the game. So she maintains priority until she's cast all of the spells that she wants to cast, and then the priority goes to the next person with the next highest experience, and it continues from there. So if you want to play counter spells, you have to wait for the active player or the person with priority to play all the spells that they want to play, and you have to ask them if they're done playing spells. If they are, then now it's your turn to play counter spells and that kind of thing. So that's how the priority works. So they build a room, I build a room, we flip them. Now we're looking at the room stats again. Oh, I actually didn't build a room, so let's build. I did, I picked it up. So we both flip rooms at the same time. My opponent does not have a come into play ability, but I do. Mine says, when I build this room, I get to build another room immediately. So I look through my hand, and I choose another room, and I'm going to build an advanced room. So this advanced room is the Monsters Ballroom. Its power and toughness, I'm getting into magic lingo there. The amount of damage it does is equal to the number of monster rooms in my dungeon. Right now I have no other monster rooms, but this is an advanced room, so I'm going to build it right on top of my construction zone, which also has the sword icon. So that's how it works. Even though it's a trap room, I can still build my advanced monster room on top of it because it has matching treasure types. So that's kind of how that works. So now the same thing's going to happen. We're going to look at where these mages want to go. So before, when I had first started the turn, I had said no, these mages weren't going to go anywhere, and that's because we both had one spell book. But now that I have one spell book and my opponent has two, those mages are going to be lured to her dungeon. So they go into the dungeon in the order that they came into town, from oldest to newest. So this one's going to go first because it's the oldest. This one will go second. Now, this is the beginning of the adventure phase now. So at the beginning of the adventure phase, the person with the highest experience is going to process, is what they call process the heroes through the dungeon. The dungeon, the first hero enters the first room, it does 0 damage, still has 6 health. It moves to the second room, takes 2 damage, now it's at 4 health. It gets to the hero, or it gets to my boss over here, and I take a wound. So when you take a wound, let me scoot these over so we can see a little better. When you take a wound, that means you leave it face up. So let's just say, for example, this guy had 2 health, okay? So he would go here, 0. He would go here, take 2 damage, and die. What that means is you flip it over, and you now have a soul. So now the way to win the game is to have 10 souls. So you lose the game at the end of a turn if you have 5 wounds. Now, every hero that's a standard hero is worth 1 wound or 1 soul. But as soon as you get into the advanced heroes, which come out, you just flip out like normal, once you're out of normal heroes, are worth 2 wounds or 2 souls. So those 5 wounds get extremely critical there at the end of the game, especially once you start coming out. You really might only be able to take 1 hero and die. Now the most important thing there, though, is that you don't actually process a winner until the complete end of the turn. So you process all the heroes through all the dungeons, and then there's a check phase where it checks for everything. All end of turn effects go away and go to the discard pile, so you have a spell that says this happens until end of turn. Those are going to go to the graveyard, and at the same time as you're doing all the cleanup, you're going to look at all the players and see, does anybody have 10 souls? Yes. Does anybody have 5 wounds? Yes. The people with 5 wounds die. People with 10 heroes or 10 souls wins. Now for tiebreakers, the way it works is you do your souls minus your wounds. So if we both have 10 souls and we're both going to win, but I have 3 wounds and she has 2 wounds, she's going to win the game. Yeah, so I mean, honestly, it's a very, very basic game, very fast-paced, especially after you've done 1 or 2 games and you understand it a little bit better. And once you start memorizing the cards in the rooms, it goes super, super lightning fast. So, yeah, my honest review of this game, this is a review / tutorial, guys, is it's great. I mean, it's an easy 10 out of 10. This game started out on what do you call it? I'm blanking on the name right now. Kickstarter. So it started out as a Kickstarter. It got funded very, very quickly, and all of the heroes are actually named after somebody from the Kickstarter. So people got to choose their names, and kind of some of the flavor text underneath the heroes. And some of them even got, some of the people that funded the game even received special, special bosses and special hero cards that were only available for that Kickstarter campaign that are ultra rare now, which is kind of cool. So there's a couple floating out there on like eBay and Amazon. You can find some of the used ones. If you look under the used section of Amazon, you can find some used Boss Monster games that are the original Kickstarters, and they're going for a lot of money. I want to say $400. Now, I found this game kind of late, and it's actually so late, in fact, that about a year late, that they're actually looking at making a Boss Monster 2, and there is an expansion. So the expansion, I believe, from what it looks like and what I've found online, that the expansion will be able to be played with the newer game, Boss Monster 2. So if you are interested in this game, go ahead and pick it up. It's not expensive, so it's worth the buy, even though number 2 is coming out sometime next year. Because you can also use the expansion, which adds items into the game, which is really fun. It makes it so that it's a lot easier to obtain wounds. So instead of trying to win so much from the very beginning, it's more about survival at that point. From turn 1, all you're trying to do is survive, and you're trying to be the longest standing boss, which is kind of an interesting, weird twist. So if you like the video, go ahead and share it out. If you like my channel, go ahead and subscribe. I do appreciate it. Until next time.